before any government can develop sound economic policy, they first need to have a good understanding of how an economy works. It's also very important that they have a purpose for our economy. Without a clear understanding of how an economy works, and without a purpose, your economy is at the mercy of vested interests. Let's now have a look at how an economy works. An economy is not unlike an engine in that it has lots of different moving parts. And it's very important that these moving parts are constantly monitored and serviced on a regular basis to ensure that the engine is running efficiently and that it doesn't seize up, conk out, leaving you stranded in the middle of nowhere. Now, for years now, these moving parts have been badly managed and often completely ignored. And both sides of politics are to blame here. However, the Liberal Party stand out in their level of gross negligence, with their obsession with deregulation, cutting red tape, cutting green tape, loosening credit regulations. This hands-off approach, this head-in-the-sand approach, it guarantees economic failure. It's an insidious strategy in responsibility avoidance. For instance, if I ignore the oil leaking out of my car, who's to blame when my car eventually seizes up? Sticking with the engine analogy, there's one more very important ingredient, and that is fuel. A constant, reliable source of fuel to keep the engine running. For an economy, this fuel is money in the form of consumption, so people buying things. Indeed, 60% of our GDP is in the form of household spending. So if a government wants to run an economy in a very efficient manner, or the most efficient manner as possible, they need to focus on this area. And the fuel with the highest level of efficiency is from those households with the lowest incomes. That's because every dollar they receive, they spend twice as much back in the economy compared to their wealthy income counterparts. The famous Henry Ford understood this concept very well when asked why he paid his employees such high wages. And his reply was, so that they can afford to buy my cars. Now, this is not a difficult concept to understand, although you'd think that the Liberal Party, well, they struggle with this concept a little bit with their undying commitment to socialism for the wealthy, which weakens our economy because there's less and less fuel going back into the engine, less money going back into our economy. Lastly, the most important aspect of an economy, and that is the purpose of an economy. What is the purpose of an economy? Without understanding this and without having a purpose, your economy is merely prey to vested interest and ultimately corruption. Now, both sides of politics are to blame here for absconding from their responsibilities for not having a purpose. And how can you have sound economic policy to benefit the people that you govern when you don't even have a purpose for your economy? At the Australian Democrats, we understand how an economy works. Our economic policy is not influenced by vested interest or ideology. It's driven by pragmatic evidence. We have a very clear purpose for our economy, and that's built around delivering on standards of living. That is, lifting standards of living for lower income earners and making sure that for the middle class, their standards of living are not eroded. We're committed to a smarter economy, a much smarter economy, to build a stronger, more secure and self-reliant Australia.